Had we shown today's match result before the start of the tournament, not too many would be surprised. Australia completely dominating and demolishing Netherlands. However, if we take into consideration how the beginning of the tournament went about, how Australia were struggling in their first two, I want to say 2.5 matches, and then the way Netherlands have performed so far, this does come as a bit of a surprise. Fardin, are we running out of possible upsets and contra wins, as they have been
Contra wins.
recently named?
Yeah.
On today's episode of The Morning After, that's what we'll discuss.
Yeah, I mean, Netherlands and Australia played a warm-up game before the start of the World Cup, right? Where Mitchell Stark got a hat trick. And before the game even like I just thought Australia's bowling attack might just be too much for Netherlands. If Australia were to bat first and put a lot of target on the board, what we saw is essentially that where the target was just too tall of a task for them and they just crumbled under the pressure of that. It was kind of a thing where they tried to keep a positive momentum to try and reach that target. We know Netherlands got 375 versus West Indies at the World Cup qualifiers to make it here. So they have that kind of a belief, but I mean, we saw that with the start that they got, but it never really lived up to it. Eventually, it's just kind of like a domino effect. After one went, all of them just started going.
David Warner finding his footing just at the right time when Travis Head arrives.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, think about it. We talked about David Warner was probably the one that was going to be replaced when Travis Head came back in, right? But with Warner now having scored two back-to-back centuries, he's basically a shoe-in till the end of the World Cup, whatever the end might be for Australia. But yeah, I mean, Australia's batting just looks so far and beyond what it was looking like the first two games of the World Cup, right? Especially the way Maxwell batted towards the end today. They had a mini collapse, you could say, where they lost 4 wickets in the middle, very quickly. And it was about what 35 overs. They were 292 or something like that, or even no less than that, even less than that. And then sorry, 248. Yeah, 248. And then from there to finish off at 399. The finishing, like we said yesterday, finishing is basically what's winning you games at the World Cup here.
Before we go more into Maxwell's innings, Steve Smith, Marnus Labuschagne getting runs at the most important time of the tournament. They need their form going ahead in the tournament, and of course, getting it with just the perfect strike rate for their positions.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, they still have the game with England to come up, and England still, the palms are down on out. They have a must-win game tomorrow. But if you think about Marnus's selection, he wasn't even at the World Cup initially. Now he's come in and he's done well enough, to keep that position. But like you said, it bodes well for Australia going forward that Steve Smith, Marnus, they all get runs. They're all having confidence so that even if they were to have a top order collapse, they're in a position where they have runs under the belt to fall back on and, resurrect any kind of collapses or anything. So Chris Cameron Green, unfortunately, not a really strong game. Ran himself out, I guess, in some aspect. But yeah.
India's son-in-law, Glenn Maxwell, getting
Yeah.
the all-time fastest World Cup 100. He narrowly missed out on that in 2015. He's
Yeah.
completed it now.
No, I think that one over where you took what 28 runs of Pasteleda. Uh, but even like before that, the shots he was playing today, if you hear back at the interview that he made after the innings, he was talking about, oh, I didn't even want to go out to bat today. So sometimes it's like a clarity of mind kind of thing where, you don't feel like you want to be out there, so you just go and do whatever, and it just comes off. And he was talking about some of those ramps and reverse hits that he was playing. He talked about how he just wanted to clear the 30, but he got so much of it, or timed it so well. It just went for six. So I mean that's not a bad problem to have. Bangladesh, some countries can't even hit sixes on demand if they wanted to. So but I mean, yeah, for him to have his wife and newborn baby come out yesterday and then play an innings like that today, will also give him mentally a lot of confidence for the rest of the World Cup, especially because Australia talks about having Maxwell in India trips always, whether it's Test or ODI, whatever it is. So it just shows the kind of impact that he can have in subcontinent conditions.
Dutch batting lineup just deciding not to show up today.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like today was, I just think it's probably the target that was just too much for them. Kind of overwhelmed by it. But I wanted to ask you if what you thought about the Dutch bowling today. It looked good in patches. It just didn't come together. But do you think they might have tried too many options? Just trying to buy a wicket here and there.
It's possible. I mean, problem is you can have those disciplined patches of bowling against this
Yeah.
Australian lineup, but with pace, you're not going to intimidate them. And
No.
we're seeing a generation of players from Australia, South Africa, New Zealand who are no longer weak against spin, who are no longer vulnerable or intimidated by spin.
Yeah.
So the likes of Ian Dutt aren't gonna be that effective.
Yeah.
Having said that, of course, it still
Especially
does beg
Roloff van der
the question.
Marwe, like he's done so well against other teams, but he was fully nullified today.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it still remains a question that Hayandat and Vandermeer could have been given a few more overs. You know,
Yeah.
Bas Delete completing his spell, 10 overs, 115.
And
It's
even
it
like he was 9 overs, 89, right? It's just like it's a lot of trust put on a young body, 100%. But I think if someone's going 10 and over, you have to try some other guys. So they might have missed a trick there with their planning or just thinking on their feet, kind of a thing.
lack of experience sort of coming into play here, just the lack of experience in big matches. Of course, Vandermeer is still the only player in the Dutch side to have played multiple big occasion games, but otherwise,
You think they were
that's a possible
intimidated a
shortcoming.
little by the Australian pace, even though initially they got a good start? Like Max O'Dowd, his dismissal looked like, just feeling for it rather than being confident that he can get there and really drive that ball through the gap.
It's possible. Absolutely. I mean, the Australian pace attack on their day can intimidate any opponent, but I
Yeah,
think what also doesn't help is the fact that this is the first and only game where the Dutch walked out in the second innings knowing that they're not going to
they're
win.
not going to win. Yeah, yeah,
In the
yeah.
first four matches, they didn't face that. They
No,
actually ended up winning one and they came pretty close in two or three of the others. So in none of those games were they completely outclassed and completely outmatched by their opponents, which happened today. And I think that doesn't exactly help it. The batters were in a very negative frame of mind to begin with.
yeah,
Kind of what we saw with the Bangladeshi batters, but
yeah.
let's not
I
go there
think I
now.
think if what will bode well for Netherlands cricket or even just the players in general is if they can edge out one more win from the remaining games, whoever it might be, just getting that one more win and really finishing like 4 points at a 10 team World Cup for a team that came from behind at the World qualifiers to come here. It will help their confidence going forward. Um, Whatever the future of ODI cricket might be. So stay tuned coming on that. We have a little episode coming on that. But yeah, I guess the commentators were saying that, against Sri Lanka, they always felt like they had a chance somehow to get into the game. So this is probably that first game where they were completely edged out by the first innings.
Adam Zampa picking up one wicket in the first two matches, averaging around 103 or something. And now he has 13 wickets in five matches, highest wicket taker of the tournament. Four wickets today again.
Yeah, I mean, what he's had two man of the match performances now. Uh, he's had what today also where he just looked in song. If you look at Shadab Khan and Osama Mir, they're two leg spinners who are not really, making an impact. They're not really finding any help from the surfaces. They're not able to create anything out of flat tracks. But you look at Kuldeep and Zampa, but Zampa especially, I think the way he's come back, because in South Africa he got hit around a lot too when Australia was in South Africa before the World Cup, and then came here and the first two games didn't really go that well. And for him to basically come out of that and have 13 wickets in 5 games now just speaks volumes of his ability as a bowler and how much impact he's had in Australian white ball cricket.
You mentioned that the format of this World Cup can be very unforgiving, especially on the lower ranked sides. Is today a good example of, the whole nine-team World Cup format, sorry, nine-match format catching up with the Netherlands?
Yeah, so you can see a fatigue is definitely setting in with some of the guys, right? Um, it's just bound to happen. They like if you think about it, in a 12-month period, they probably never play 10, maybe. But even 10 of those is not all of them are not high intensity or not at the stage like a World Cup, right? Um, some of them they're playing at Rotterdam or Amsterdam where it might rain out and you might only play 20-25 overs. So um, to play 9 games in 6 weeks, a lot of these guys are not used to, end of the day, some of them are amateur, not amateur, like semi-professional, right? Because they have a day job that they've come out of to play at the World Cup in some aspects. So that will definitely have its part to play here with these guys. But yeah, let's hope that they can edge out one more game somehow, because that will be good for world cricket in general and for them.
Australia, firm favorites once again for the top four spot.
Freaking hell, bro. I actually thought there was a chance that Australia and England both might not have a top four position. This is a good time to be in Australia. Cricket season's coming up. Sheffield Shield's going on. These guys are so happy. They're probably praying today that Sri Lanka somehow beats England, and then England is done at the World Cup for sure. So yeah, I mean, Australia is looking definitely a good contender for that final two position. You know, if they keep going the way they are, semifinals is definitely guaranteed, and then you know, playoffs, anything can happen on their day.
Arjun, thank you very much. I think we've pretty much covered everything for today's game. Not much to talk about so far, with the demolition job that Australia carried out. Having said that, of course, we look forward to tomorrow's game.
Yes,
It's
sir.
going to be an
Yes,
interesting
sir.
affair.
Must win game. And Johnny Bairstow, he's said a few things about Alex Carey since the England's last game. So and Alex Carey's been dropped from Australian team. So now Bairstow's gonna put some runs, or else Australia's gonna come out with some excerpts of their own. So but it'll be good to see. Sri Lanka only got their first win recently, so um yeah, all to play for tomorrow for both teams.
And to our viewers, thank you very much. We'll hopefully be back tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.